Hello and let's talk about the hoardings in Uttar Pradesh. Over the past week, the country has seen a curious case in the courts. In the dock is Uttar Pradesh government of Adityanath, which put up hoardings with the names and addresses of those it said were involved in rioting. This name and shame way of executing justice, something which feels like a throwback to an earlier era, has been fiercely defended by the government, but this approach was ripped into pieces by the Allahabad High Court, whereas the Supreme Court is referred to a larger bench. This issue raises very fundamental questions about the rule of law itself. Can the government declare a suspect or accused socially guilty? Do not acts like this risk the possibility of mob rule and street justice? We'll discuss some of these issues, but first, here are some basic facts about the case. The UP government put up the hoardings in several places in Lucknow on March 5th with the names and addresses of people it claimed were involved in violence. Among those whose details were plastered across the city were prominent social activists who had taken part in anti-CAA protests. On March 7th, the Allahabad High Court took suo motu notice of the issue and asked district authorities for details. On March 9th, the High Court ordered the removal of the hoardings and termed the act of putting them up an unwarranted interference in privacy. The court was extremely critical of the UP government on the issue. Subsequently, the UP government challenged the High Court verdict in the Supreme Court. Yesterday, a two-judge bench said that there was no law to back the UP government's action, but nonetheless referred the issue to a larger three-judge bench. The court did not stay the Allahabad High Court's ruling. However, the UP government's lawyers have said that the hoardings will not be taken down, citing the fact that the case has been referred to a larger bench. The Allahabad High Court will take up the issue again on the 16th as part of compliance hearings. To talk more about this, we have with us Pragya. Pragya, thank you for joining us.
Hi.
So, the key question that has been in people's minds from the beginning of this issue is that at some level, what does this imply for the rule of law itself? Like, we have a very established process, there's an FIR, there's a judicial process, after which a verdict is pronounced and then justice is served, whatever be this thing, or people are acquitted. But this in some ways seems to be prejudging the issue.
Right.
So what is the government's argument for this?
The word you used, social justice, social putting out the addresses and the names along with the photographs basically means somewhere that the implication is that the UP government does not believe that its criminal justice system can deliver justice. These people are not absconding. They have, in fact, many of them were arrested and then released on bail. They obviously the UP government knows where they live. That is why their addresses have been in the access of the government. So the point that is really important is that now the UP government is sort of adamant. They say even in the Supreme Court that they will not let remove these posters. But the fact is the Supreme Court has said they must be removed by 16th of March. The logic that the UP government...
By default, by not staying the Allahabad High Court judgment.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So the thing is that now the UP government's logic is that we are using this as a deterrent. And they are saying that there is a legal logic behind their action, and that logic they are bringing in all the way from UK, from London specifically, where in 2011 there were riots on the streets of London, and there were a number of juveniles who were involved in those riots. The ones who did not appear before the magistrate on their own, the police had taken some action of putting out their photographs in order to help identify them. Remember, not their names and certainly not their addresses. The law in the UK also says that you cannot name and shame, so to speak, a minor. It only says that you can get permission from the magistrate if you want to reveal who they are. So that is a position. That is a position in India as well. There is really no difference. Why this case related to juveniles is being dragged into a matter in UP related to the CA protests is very hard to actually figure.
Right. And what we're seeing is a very dangerous precedent, because now this lays the foundation for, especially if it's not properly nipped in the bud, it lays the foundation for governments across the country to actually take up this method. And inevitably, as we know, with the Indian justice system, it's always the minorities, it's always the poorer people who are suffering.
Right.
Like, I think there was a tweet which said, for instance, nobody's ever going to put the bank defaulters photos and addresses on
In fact,
posters.
there was an attempt to do that, and
Right.
it was quickly nipped in the bud.
Right.
Right. So this is the problem, that these people who have been arrested have been charged with rioting, but what they say they were doing is participating in a protest,
Right.
and some of them were simply attending the protest, meaning that they were there at the site. Now there is no video evidence, unlike again the UK example which they're citing. There is no video of them actually participating in any kind of violent.
Right.
The problem is that they have been, many of them have been asked to pay a certain amount to the UP government in order to compensate for losses, which is another new phenomenon we are seeing. We're seeing
Right.
poor people, working class people who are simply out there protesting being asked to pay up.
Right.
And these people are also supposed to pay up. They have a deadline of 13th March. Some of them are already in the court. They're disputing, this particular expectation which the
Right.
government has. So when that time has not passed, then what is the logic behind this? Now you are whipping up sentiment somewhere.
Exactly.
That is the only objective which
Right.
seems logically to emerge
Right.
from this, and that is very, very unhealthy.
Yeah, because at some level, when you print the addresses, it's what in online terms you would call doxing.
Right.
The only difference being that this time it's actually the government which is doing it, as opposed to crackers or illegal
Hackers,
elements.
right,
Yeah,
right.
so you have people, by giving addresses, basically in some senses it serves as an invitation for mobs, for antisocial elements to
Right.
basically.
This is what has been argued in the court by two of the lawyers in the Supreme Court who are representing two of the aggrieved people. They have said that, in fact, one of them has said that I am being attacked and I am being beaten up and I am being questioned and called and so on. And the other, the retired police officer has also said that, he feels that it's like an invitation to lynch him.
Right.
Right? Now, what do we really earn from this? What do we
Exactly.
gain? It doesn't seem that the legal system or the criminal justice system really earns
So it's
any
fundamentally, it
points.
does look like an act of vengeance as opposed to
That's right.
an act of justice. And it's deeply unfortunate that a government is
It's-
the one doing this.
Right. It's an act actually of great injustice.
Right.
Right. So now the point is that the UK president has been used as a reason by the court to ask for higher number of judges to sit on this. Now, 3 judges will sit and decide. The issue is that in the privacy judgment, in the Puttaswamy judgment, it was clearly said that a precedent from another court in another jurisdiction does not necessarily have to be taken whole and soul by India and adopted as if it would be the law here. On the other hand, when there has been a violation of a fundamental right, in those cases the Supreme Court has upheld foreign judgments. So it is not in the lack of, you see, what the Supreme Court has always tried to do is to say that when there is a violation of a fundamental right, then we will use the laws of other jurisdictions to defend those rights in India. But if there is a violation in another jurisdiction, we cannot use that as a precedent, as a blanket precedent to follow in India as well. So it remains to be seen what the Supreme Court will actually, the 3-judge bench will actually make of the Solicitor General's arguments. But it's rather shocking that he said that, what he said is that there is a legal logic, and that logic is if you throw a stone, we will throw a stone back. And that is what the posters essentially are, a stone thrown by the government at people, which stoning is not a part of the Indian law.
Exactly.
Right? So,
True. And so all eyes are now on the 16th when the Allahabad High Court
Yes.
hears it once again. And the UP government has, at least so far as I understand, not taken it down. And
They have
said
not.
that they don't want to, they don't plan to either.
They have not. They do not plan to. I think it has become an issue of pride. Also, maybe they want to send actually the message they want to send is to everybody else who might want to protest. Remember the CAA protest, the CAA issue is not over.
Exactly.
The anti-CAA protests have been quelled a little bit. Maybe that moment has passed for now, but who is to tell when the next moment arrives? After all, the NPR exercise is supposed to begin from next month.
Right.
And people might not be on the streets in the same numbers as they were a month ago, but there is still that sense of disquiet. And there is also on top of it a polarization.
Right.
So now the state government and the central government should not appear as if they're taking sides in this matter.
Right.
And also not to drag the court into it, also to take sides here or there. Now the court has got like another 4 weeks to sit over this issue. But the posters, it is very clear, have to be removed.
Right. Thank you so much, Pragya.
Thanks.
In our next story, we go to Tamil Nadu. As India, in India as a whole, we're very proud of claiming that we're a modern nation, we are developed, we are a trillion-dollar economy, and we want to be that and all that. But nonetheless, in many parts of the countries, very regressive social customs still remain, which have not gone yet, and due to which thousands of people suffer. In this story from our team in Tamil Nadu, we look at an untouchability fence, which is barring the movement and the lives of Dalits there. Take a look.
இந்த அழகுமலை கிராமம் என்பது திருப்பூர் மாவட்டம் பொங்கலூர் ஒன்றியத்துக்குட்பட்ட அழகுமலை ஊராட்சிக்கு உட்பட்ட அழகுமலை கிராமம். கடந்த ஆண்டு நவம்பர் மாதம் ஒரு வேலி தாழ்த்தப்பட்ட மக்கள் வசிக்கக்கூடிய பகுதியிலிருந்து கோவிலுக்குள் நுழையக்கூடாது என்கிற ஒரு எண்ணத்தில் ஒரு வேலி அமைக்கப்படுகிறது, கம்பி வேலி அமைக்கப்படுகிறது. அந்த கம்பி வேலி அமைக்கப்பட்டதுக்கு பின்னால் தீண்டாமை ஒழிப்பு முன்னணியை கூப்பிட்டு இந்த மாதிரி வேலி போடுறாங்க, எங்களுக்கு உதவி செய்யுங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்லி அந்த மக்கள் கூப்பிட்றாங்க. நாங்களும் கள ஆய்வு செஞ்சு பார்க்கும்போது எதற்காக இந்த வேலி போடப்படுகிறது அப்படின்னு சொல்லி பார்க்கும்போது இது முற்றிலுமாக ஒரு தீண்டாமைக்கு ஆதரவாக போடப்பட்டிருக்கூடிய ஒரு வேலி என்பது எங்களுடைய ஆய்வில் தெரிய வருது.
நாங்கள் நடக்கக்கூடாது, அந்த பக்கம் கோயில் பாத வழியில் எங்களுக்கு நடக்கக்கூடாது. அந்த வழியில் நாங்கள் நடக்கக்கூடாது, நடந்தால் அவங்களுக்கு தீட்டு அப்படிங்கிறாங்க. அதனால் நீங்கள் சுற்றிப்பாங்க, உங்களுக்கு ரோடு போட்டுக்கிறோமில்ல, நீங்கள் சுற்றிப்பாங்க, இந்த வழியில் ஏன் நடக்கிறீங்க அப்படிங்கிறாங்க.
எங்களை ஜாதி அடிப்படையில் தள்ளி ஒதுக்கி வச்சுட்டாங்க. எங்களுக்கு என்ன பண்ணுறதுன்னு எங்களுக்கு தெரியல. ஆனால் நாங்கள் இதுக்கு போராடும் போது எங்களை வலுக்கட்டாயமாக கிராமமாக கூட்டிகிட்டு போய் மண்டபத்தில் அடைச்சி வச்சுட்டாங்க. நாங்கள் போனதுக்கு அப்புறம் மறுபடியும் இந்த வேலி போட்டுட்டாங்க, ஒன்றும் பண்ண முடியல.
இந்த வருவாய்த்துறை சம்மந்தப்பட்ட அதிகாரிகளை பார்த்து இந்த இடத்துல இப்படி ஒரு ஆக்கிரமிப்பு இருக்குது, பாதைகளை மறிச்சிருக்காங்க, எங்களுக்கு அகற்றி கொடுங்க அப்படின்னு சொன்னபோது எந்த அரசு அதிகாரிகளுமே எந்த நடவடிக்கையும் எடுக்கலை. மறுபடியும் நாங்கள் கலெக்டர் போய் பார்த்தோம், அவரும் எந்த நடவடிக்கையும் எடுக்கலை. அப்புறம் நாங்கள் இந்த ஃபீல்டு மேப் இந்த இடத்தினுடைய சர்வே நம்பரில் பார்த்து இந்த ஃபீல்டு மேப்பை நாங்கள் கலெக்ட் பண்ணி பார்த்தபோது இது முழுக்க அரசுக்கு வருவாய்த்துறைக்கு சொந்தமான நிலமாக இருக்குது.
தேசிய மனித உரிமைகள் ஆணையத்தில் நாங்கள் வழக்கு தொடுத்தோம். அது விசாரணைக்கு போகிற போது உடனடியாக அந்த நீதியரசர் என்ன சொன்னார்னா, அவர் கலெக்டர்கிட்ட இது என்ன இடம்னு சொல்லி ஒரு அறிக்கை வாங்கிட்டு அதுக்கப்புறம் அரசினுடைய புறம்போக்கு இடமாக இருந்தால் அதை ரிமூவ் பண்ணிடுங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்லி அவர் சொல்கிறார். அப்போது இது 17ஆம் தேதிக்குள்ளார அந்த ரிப்போர்ட்டை அரசுக்கு மனித உரிமை ஆணையத்துக்கு வர வச்சு அதுக்கு பின்னால் நடவடிக்கைக்கு போகணும்னு சொல்லி சொல்கிறாங்க. ஆனால் இன்றைக்கு வரைக்கும் அந்த ரிப்போர்ட்டு எங்களுக்கு அனுப்பப்படவே இல்லை.
As per the 2014 map, the temple boundary is shown in red and the empty ground surrounding the temple is shaded in yellow. The residential area is shown with blue boundary. But in 2018, a concrete road was laid from the residential area to the main road. Then, much to the shock of the residents, a barbed wire fence came up, cutting across the newly laid road. This untouchability fence have two gates, closed by 6 p.m. every day, hindering the movement of people returning from jobs and children from schools.
இப்போ இந்த மக்கள் கிட்டத்தட்ட ஒரு வருட காலமாக இந்த வேலியை அகற்றணுங்கிறதுக்காக மிகப்பெரிய போராட்டத்தை நடத்திட்டே இருக்கிறாங்க. இப்போ இருக்கக்கூடிய இளைஞர்கள் உட்பட இந்த வேலியை உடனடியாக நாம் அகற்றுவதற்கான ஒரு போராட்டத்தை நடத்தணும் அப்படிங்கிறதுல உறுதியாக இருக்கிறாங்க. அப்போது இது ஒட்டுமொத்தமாக இந்த திருப்பூர் மாவட்டத்தினுடைய ஒரு தீண்டாமை சின்னமாக திகழ்ந்து கொண்டிருக்கிறது. திருப்பூர் மாவட்டத்தில் இருக்கக்கூடிய தீண்டாமையினுடைய சின்னமாக இந்த வேலி என்பது திகழ்ந்து கொண்டிருக்கிறது என்பதுதான் தமிழ்நாடு தீண்டாமை ஒழிப்பு முன்னணி முன்வைக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு குற்றச்சாட்டாக இருக்குது.
In our next story, we take a look at the situation in Afghanistan nearly 2 weeks after a peace deal was signed between the US and the Taliban. We have Abdul from People's Dispatch to talk about this issue. Abdul, thank you for joining us. Abdul, so 2 weeks ago, and we talked about this on this show a couple of times, but 2 weeks ago there was a peace deal, the US and Taliban. There was a lot of speculation regarding what would happen in terms of whether it would actually hold, what would be the response of the Afghan government, the various factions in the Afghan government, how would the Taliban respond itself. So 2 weeks down the line, what's your evaluation on the scene?
I think the so-called diesel is in trouble already.
Okay.
If you see, for two reasons, I'll say. First, of course, the peace deal, which basically paved the way for the US troops to withdraw within, say, it says 135 days, 135 days, the troops will go to the level which was basically the state when the Obama was in power, which is 8,600 troops at the moment, which is of course US has started withdrawing the troops, but what we see that the so-called ceasefire is no more observed on the ground. There was an attack by US in a few days back, which basically is the first sign that not everything is going well. The second thing is the intra-Afghanistan dialogue, which was to happen, which has to start from the March 10th, has not started yet. Primarily because the Afghan government or the Afghan parties other than Taliban have not been able to decide their delegates. Because of the political uncertainty, who is the real president in Afghanistan, that is the issue. So as you know, two, Abdullah and Ashraf Ghani themselves have declared the presidents elected, and they both have sworn in as president of Afghanistan. So we do not know who will be deciding the delegates and what will be the structure of the delegation and all.
Right. So coming back to that point, the two swearing-ins. So now the US seems to have supported Ashraf Ghani at this point of time, because I think its representatives participate in the swearing-in. But how do you see this two-president situation, which is, even for Afghanistan, is unprecedented? What do you see happening in the next couple of months over this? Can Abdullah actually mount a sustained challenge, or is it likely to fade in a few weeks?
I think there will be some kind of compromise. The backdoor negotiations are already on. In fact, yesterday there was a reporting that Ashraf Ghani has already offered 40% seats inside the government to Abdullah.
Okay.
So far he has not accepted it, but I think there will be some more bargain, and there will be some kind of compromise as it was in 2014.
Right.
If you remember, this is not for the first time that, though the swearing-in is a new thing, even for Afghanistan. Yeah, but the dispute over the elections, the results, is nothing new for Afghanistan. It has been happening for last 3 elections at least, if not nothing more than. If you see in 2014, after the US intervention, both the parties agreed and created a new post called Chief Executive in the Afghanistan government, and Abdullah was made that. So it was later on known as National Unity Government.
Right.
So similar attempts are being made now also, and hopefully it will be resolved in that sense. If it is not happening in that way, then that will be a complete disaster. It will not only spoil the US chances of withdrawing the troops, particularly Trump's plan to come out of Afghanistan as a victory, to basically to claim in the elections in US. It will also spoil you can say the expectations of people to kind of bring peace in Afghanistan.
And this situation might be actually quite perfect for the Taliban, because on the one hand you have the US looking to just leave everything and go as fast as possible. On the other hand, the other factions are so completely divided, and the Taliban must be really very banking on its chances to sort of take over even more parts of the country.
Exactly. If you see, the only winner in this particular, the so-called peace deal is Taliban. If everything goes according to the plan, and if US troops are withdrawn, what we see that Taliban will be the sole winner, in the sense that it has the power to basically defeat the current dispensation in Afghanistan, because they have already control over more than half of the territory, directly or indirectly, and they have the forces to kind of defeat the so-called government forces without the backing of the United States. Though US has committed in the deal, there is a mention that US will protect the government interest in one way or another, but I don't think it will be sustainable. So Taliban, if it does not only gain legitimacy because of the deal, it is not only, if you see, there was a resolution in United Nations Security Council which was proposed by United States, which also proposes the withdrawal of sanctions against Taliban. So Taliban will not only gain within Afghanistan, it will also gain some internationally also. Legitimacy in the international arena. And it will have the military power to basically defeat and have a complete control over Afghanistan.
So there is a possibility that they may let a puppet structure continue in the immediate vicinity of Kabul while actually taking control of the political and economic and social life of most of the country?
Militarily, this is the fact already. The Ashraf Ghani government or the Abdullah government have some influence in and around Kabul, the capital territory.
Right.
Beyond that, it is basically contested control, whether it is of Taliban or the government forces, depends whoever gains. Majority of the areas are basically run by Taliban.
Right.
Now, you are right that once this thing happen as Taliban is assuming, then they will have complete control over the rest of the territory, both politically, economically, and in other ways also.
Right.
But the biggest loser will be the people of Afghanistan, primarily women and minorities. If you remember, I think we have repeated this point several times, that one of the main justifications for 2001 US invasion was the protection of women, the protection of minorities in Afghanistan. And so-called democracy was based on this particular premise. Today, Taliban has not gone back an inch on its agenda on women and minority issues. So we don't know what will happen to them.
Thank you so much, Abdul. That's all we have in this episode of Let's Talk. We'll be back on Monday at 3 p.m. with the major news developments of the day. Until then, keep watching Newsclick.